by denying me entrance into the chambers to resume my duty. There's been some conversations in the media by his own team. Try to have decisions of any of the Nigerian courts are binding and enforceable on every Nigerian and every other. It is still a decision of a court, and it is still binding on appeal the judgment. And I mentioned it. Now, this the appeal that was initiated last week against Justice Binta Nyako's judgment. It is clear that it is not the National Assembly, neither of Nigeria Assembly judgment. And the Chairman Committee on Ethics as joint respondents to the case. That means Akpabio has taken the appeal judgment. No, what I appeal, there's the satirical letter which I made, or the satirical apology letter which I made on Facebook with healing again. In as much as the judgment just gave suspension, but there is one particular portion of her decision which I want us to hinge upon, where she mentioned that set for 6 months actually will prevent my ability to carry out my constitutional functions out my assembly's institution is illegal, and the National Assembly cannot be greater than the Constitution. They are now coming down again based on the appeal. Akpabio himself cannot be greater than the courts, cannot be greater than the Constitution. And I want Nigerians to know
Natasha Akpoti Natasha made this known while speaking with newsmen in Abuja yesterday. Personnel. Now, the suspended senator had on Tuesday defied a heavy security blockade and arrived at the National Assembly complex on foot from the Mopo Gate, accompanied by Akpoti Uduaghan, who defied the rain, insists that her suspension was not only unjust but also this would go into a 2-month recess beginning from today, Wednesday. So now some have suggested by the time they were sitting, by then her suspension would have been over. But that that the National Assembly, like she said, obeys court orders. She did highlight there that a recommendation by an appellate court, I mean, come on, by a court of competent jurisdiction, naturally should be respected. And I think that is the biggest problem we have today. The fact that there is no respect for the rule of law, there is no regard for something that Nigerians should, take into serious consideration because of the sheer fact that the Jew to have lost its potency, so to say, and as the case may be, and this has somewhat created a worrisome trend, as it were. In the case of Senator Natasha Akpoti, senatorial district, the court, as highlighted in that judgment by Her Lordship, Justice Binta Nyako, the fact that the people of Kogi Central Senatorial District, for how many months now, legislative, she headed as chairman, as a senator in the Harlow chambers of the, it is evident that there is more than meets the eye in this matter that pertains to Senator Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan, Senator Godswill Akpabio, the President of the Senate, the Red Harlow Chamber, and of course, legislative chamber are being handled. And again, it comes back to what I said earlier when we talked about the governor of Edo State and the comments attributed to him, saying that he just made one small statement and people are busy shouting. Despite the fact that time tells us that we're in the 21st century, because the way and manner in which our legislators, our leaders at all levels seem to be acting with flagrant disregard for the rule of law, flagrant disregard for court judgment, and then what is more alarming for me, being a student of the law, is the fact that supposed legal luminaries, men of the cloak, who are supposed to be more or less the shining light when it comes to issues of the law, seem to be the ones who are creating the loopholes for these supposed leaders to continue to flagrantly disregard court judgments, the rule of law, and the process of governance. And it's a big problem. It's a big problem. Some would think that Senator Natasha is being a bit reactive, overly reactive, knowing fully well that she wouldn't be given access to the National Assembly, but yet still making the attempt to resume her duties in the National Assembly. But I think we should look at the message that she's trying to make Nigerians understand. I think we should look beyond the surface. We should look at the context of what is truly happening. The fact that a court judgment, from a respected judge, and that court judgment is being tossed up and down, giving all kinds of interpretation when it is written in plain, simple English. These should be issues of concern for anyone and everyone, because in the build-up to 20, if there's anything to the fallout of 2023 is anything to go by, then in the build-up to 2027, the suggestion right now, the indices tend to suggest that we might be in for some trouble. I don't know about you, but you tell me what you think, because I know Nigerians at this point, we are bogged down with how to keep our heads above water, how to survive under the current economy. The government is telling us that the economy is doing well, the GDP is rebasing, just the same way the ADC has told the APC-led administration that Nigeria strengthen the naira. Strengthen the naira. The naira has been on free fall in close to a week now, and they seem not to have answers to all of these problems. So looking at all of this, we have the responsibility to continue to point them in the right direction. What do you think? Hear your opinion. What do you think of her constituency of Senator Natasha? If the Senate is not bigger than the Constitution, the 1999 Constitution as amended, it is the grand norm, and it means that lawmakers who are supposed to uphold the law are the ones breaking the law, are the ones rendering the same laws, sets of laws. Is there a different constitution that works for them and a different constitution that works for other Nigerians? I don't know. You tell me, because I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to make sense of it all. I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to make sense of it all. I'm trying to get I'm trying to make sense of it, because I really don't get it. Why it is so difficult for the Senate and the National Assembly particularly to be able to simply obey a court order. A recommendation has been made. A judge has said, look, this suspension is excessive. I mean, what else? What other adjective, what other quantitatives do they need to understand that the action that was taken was not proper in the first place? Yes. What more do they need? Well, we'll take a quick breather, and when we come back, the phone lines will be open for your reactions right here on the arena as we look at Senator Natasha being barred by security operatives from resuming plenary in the National Assembly yesterday, July 22nd, 2025.
Of July 2025, having duly notified the Senate through 2 letters that I would be resuming functions today. As a matter of fact, I'm disappointed on 2 grounds. One is the number of armed policemen that we met outside, all well kitted with guns, charged at a female senator who is unarmed with her people here, patriotic Nigerians. And the second thing is the fact that the Senate, under the leadership of Godswill Akpabio, have decided to become lawbreakers and by denying me entrance into the chambers to resume my duty. There's been some conversations in the media by his own team trying to twist the narrative that the judge did not order my reinstatement, and I'd like to clarify that. You see, pursuant to Section 318 of the 1999 Constitution, it is very clear that decisions of a court comes in 5 ways. It could be a judicial decree, it could be a sentence, it could be an order, it could be a conviction, and it could be a recommendation. So an order is just one of the 5 decisions that a judge can pronounce over any case, and mine tilt towards a recommendation. Now you would think that a recommendation is a voluntary, that means the Senate has either they comply or they have the right not to comply, but I'd like to clarify that. Again, if you go further to the to section 287 subsection 3 of the 1999 Constitution, again it actually specifies in clear terms that decisions, that's any of these 5 decisions of any of the Nigerian courts, are binding and enforceable on every Nigerian and every authority. So what that means in simple terms, whether they mention that the Justice Binta Nyako of the Federal High Court made an order or made a sentence or made a judicial decree or a recommendation, whatever, however they want to interpret the literal words, interpretation of the words, it is still a decision of a court and it is still binding on the National Assembly. The second issue that I have seen withering around the media is that the Senate appealed the judgment, and I mentioned it. I'm saying it clearly. Hamza, can you please give me? Where's Hamza? Let me have that page, please. Let me have the appeal. Let me show them the appeal. Now, this is functions. Fact, I'm disappointed on 2 grounds. One is the number of armed policemen that we met outside, all well kitted with guns, charged at a female senator who is unarmed with her. The Senate, under the leadership of Godswill Akpabio, have decided to become lawbreakers and by denying me entrance into the chambers to resume my duty. There's been some conversations in the media by his own team trying to twist the narrative that the judge did not order my reinstatement, and I'd like to clarify that. You see, pursuant to Section 318 of the 1999 Constitution, it is very clear that decisions of a court comes in 5 ways. It could be a judicial decree, it could be a sentence, it could be an order, it could be a conviction, and it could be either they comply or they have the right not to comply. But I'd like to clarify that. Again, if you go further to the to section 287, subsection 3 of the 1999 Constitution, again, it actually specifies in clear terms that decisions, that's any of these 5 decisions of any of the Nigerian courts, are binding and enforceable on every Nigerian and every authority. So what that means in simple terms, whether they mention that the Justice Binta Nyako, the Federal High Court judgment, the Senate has not appealed the judgment. The Committee on Ethics has not, that suspended me wrongly, has not appealed the judgment. As a matter of fact, Senator Pabio joined the clerk of the National Assembly, the entire Senate, and the chairman Committee on Ethics as joint respondents to the case. That means Akpabio has taken the National Assembly and the Senate and the clerk and the committee to court as well. Do you understand? That must be clarified. So there is no reason whatsoever, contrary to the publications I read yesterday, that I should not resume today because the Senate has appealed my suspension judgment, and that's wrong. The Senate did not.
Your own appealed judgment.
No, what I appealed is the content, and that is separate. The judgment came in 2 parts. Thought it of her court because, and what I would say clearly, hold on. What I would say clearly here is, me appealing the content does not in any way invalidate the decision
on grand norm. And what's the grand norm? The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. 0808 312 8618. That's the studio line, and you get the opportunity to be part of the conversation this morning on the arena. We just have about 19 minutes left before we call it a wrap on today's edition of the show. The rule of law, obedience to court judgment, and the need to become a I'm looking for the right adjectives to quantify the kind of society that we should be, we ought to be. Yes, I know somebody once said there is what it is, what it should be, or what it ought to be. And it's sad that we are where we are as a people and as a nation, and we continue to exhibit and expose ourselves to be somewhat in the Stone Age rather than in the 21st century, where the rule of law, the tenets of the rule of law, the dividends of democracy are supposedly the things, the instruments that guide how we function as a people and as a nation. But today, we see the kind of drama that ensued yesterday in front of the National Assembly, where there was heavy traffic and law enforcement agencies, a combination of the police, the DSS, the civil defense, the sergeants at arms, all trying to ensure that a legitimately voted and recognized senator does not have access to the National Assembly to carry out her constitutionally empowered functions, even after a competent court of the land has issued a judgment that, I mean, you don't need to be a scientist. You don't need to be a rocket scientist. You don't need to be a genius to understand. The court says, look, the position, you have a right to punish your members where they have erred, but the punishment should not be excessive, as in the case of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. And I mean, that alone, I mean, well, let's leave out all the legal jargons and the legal technicalities which our legal luminaries like to dwell upon in a bid to try to prove to us that their own brain is better than our brain. There's something they understand that you and I don't understand, which is not necessarily true, because I can tell you that some of us who haven't being called to bar and don't wear the cloak understand some of these legal issues even better than they who say that they've been called to bar. I mean, it's common sense. It's common sense. And I mean, is this the kind of democracy that we want to operate I mean, in the wake of the 21st century, going into the 22nd? So these are the questions. I mean, tell me. The arena is open, the floor is open, the phone lines are live and active. What do you think? How do we make headway? Because right now, the only thing that seems to be worthy of conversation, a worthy subject of conversation, is 2027. 2025 has just entered the second half, and I just told you during the course of this morning's programming, the same National Assembly, the same Senate, has approved a $21.5 billion loan for 2025-2026 for the Tinubu-led administration. Now, don't forget, just barely weeks ago, the talk about how indebted we are as a country, and how both our public and foreign debt is growing, and just the same. And so, I mean, there are questions begging for answers, and we just have lawmakers who were elected to protect the interests of the Nigerian populace. But as it is, they seem to be protecting the interests of the executive. They seem to be a rubber stamp, not checkmating, not asking the right questions, not insisting that Nigerians should get value for their votes. And yet, there's so much talk about 2027. Just yesterday, we were talking about Peter Obi and the political gang up, and on Monday, the big question: who's afraid of Peter Obi? And it's becoming very glaring that we have a less than a handful of people who just decide that they want to steer this ship called Nigeria how they so want it, not necessarily how Nigerians want it to be steered and in what direction Nigerians want it to be steered. So the phone lines are open. You tell me what your thoughts are as we look at these developments. And as I said, and I stand to be corrected, I think there is a bigger picture to what the suspended lawmaker representing Kogi Central on the platform of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Senator Natasha is trying to make Nigerians see with her actions. Some Nigerians, yes, we're all entitled to our opinion, no doubt, but I mean, some of us will look at it and say, look, Senator, rest. Whenever they are ready, they'll call you. But are we looking at the big picture? Are we looking at both the short-term and long-term implications of some of the actions that have followed all of this drama? Are we truly taking time to look at all the dynamics, the elements involved in ensuring that in the long term, because I don't know, I may be wrong, but you tell me. I think in the long run, you and I will always be at the receiving end. Yeah, we'll be at the receiving end, one way or the other. Because these guys will do what they want to do, get away with it, more or less, except somehow you and I find a way of holding them accountable for the actions they have taken that have been detrimental to the growth and progress of our great nation, Nigeria. So, tell me, 0808-312-8618. 0808-312-8618. What's your thought? How do we navigate ourselves out of this quagmire that we seem to find ourselves? Of course, the suspended lawmaker said she will approach. She has appealed the judgment. She has appealed the position of the Senate because the Senate, based on the advice given to them by their lead legal counsel, Daudu SAN, said the court did not compel or order them to reinstate the suspended senator who has been suspended for 6 months by the Senate leadership for refusing to take the seat assigned to her by Senate President Godswill Akpabio at plenary. Well, she challenged the action in court, which said the Senate was excessive in slamming a 6-month suspension on her and pronounced her recall. Pronounced her recall. So the clash between the suspended senator, security agent, and her supporters, of course, resulted from the former's effort to stop her from accessing the main Senate building to resume duties. I mean, hell, I mean, come on. She's a public servant. She serves the people. She serves the people of Kogi Central. She serves the people of Nigeria. And the people of Nigeria were somewhat represented by the supporters who followed her to the Senate. I'm still yet to understand how they intend to explain this, how they want to make sense. Okay, can somebody tell me if I have an 11-year-old daughter. Now, how do I make sense to her? Because if she walks up to me and say, Daddy, why would the Senate stop a senator from coming to do her job? That's what she was elected to do, represent the people of Kogi Central and Nigerians and legislate and carry out oversight function. The court has said the suspension was excessive. The court has given its judgment. Why is it difficult for the Senate to obey the court order? Can somebody just tell me how you explain that to an 11-year-old? Because whether we like it or not, these are the things that I like. As I said earlier, we may not look at the long-term implication of some of these actions. You know, it looks more like, politics and politicians. No, we can't, because both in the short term and in the long run, we are the ones at the receiving end. I mean, the House of Representatives thinks it has the power to tell the U.S. to restore 5-year visa and all of that. It doesn't. With the way we currently are acting, the way we are carrying ourselves in the eye of the global community, I mean, everybody's raising an eyebrow. Everybody's pointing fingers. Everybody's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Is this what democracy looks like? So I can't understand when the American government raises a red flag, an amber alert, and said, don't go to Nigeria. There's kidnapping, there's insecurity, there's poor health care. With the way the people who are supposed to take the decisions that are supposed to change the future, the outlook of our great nation, are busy playing, I don't know, rougher politics, if you may ask me, What do you expect? What do you expect? So, you tell me. The phone line, the studio line is open. Don't forget, we're also live and interactive on our social media handles. You can follow, like, share, subscribe, and VOP on Facebook, Instagram, and on X, formerly known as Twitter. And you can also follow, we're streaming live on our YouTube channel. So don't forget to follow, like, share, and most importantly, subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can follow conversations on VOP 96.1 FM Abuja. Okay, so think about it. Even when the show goes off the air, the conversation continues online, so you can still send in your views, comments, reactions to this development. Trust us, as always, to do our best, but to keep our ears to the ground and our searchlight beamed on developments as they evolve, and we'll do our best to bring these issues to the front burner, as always. Of course, that is why we have the arena, the opportunity for you and I to engage in meaningful, in-depth conversations in a bid to prefer workable solutions, so as to move our nation forward. 2027, the countdown is on, no doubt. The big, we've got the coalition, we've got the PDP. Right now, the APC and the PDP are preparing for their NEC meetings, make or mar NEC meetings that will determine what direction the parties will take. For the APC, it's just about determining who the new national chairman would be after the resignation of the former national chairman, Abdullahi Ganduje, and of course being able to re-engineer their structure in the build-up to 2027. For the PDP, it's more like sigh of relief. Good riddance to bad rubbish after the resignation of former Vice President and 2023 presidential flag bearer Atiku Abubakar. So now the suggestion is that the PDP is now free to be able to now reorganize, re-strategize, re-evaluate its position in the build-up to 2027. It's still not clear whether the PDP will form some kind of alliance with the coalition, who have chosen the Africa Democratic Congress (ADC) as their political platform, even though it is still not clear where the 2023 presidential flag bearer of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, where he's going to pitch his tent, because there are all kinds of narratives in the public domain as to whether the ADC will give him the presidential ticket or not. The Abure-led faction have said that there's no automatic ticket for Peter Obi, and just on Monday, his running mate in 2023, Yusuf Ahmed Dati, did come out to say he would contest the 2027 presidential election, hopefully on the platform of the Labour Party, and that his mission is to reconcile the warring factions in the Labour Party. And it's shocking because Abure seems to be sitting on the premise that because INEC recognizes him, that makes him the authentic chairman, national chairman of the Labour Party. But, of course, a court ruling says otherwise. A court ruling says otherwise. The party's constitution says otherwise. So, I mean, it's crazy looking at all of this. And so,